Okay, so it's readily known that trauma can induce mental disorders. So let's explore what constitutes physical, emotional abuse and what damage they do. I think we have a slide on that too, please. There we go.
So yeah, physical abuse, like it says in the slide, being hit, kicked, punched, bitten, burned, tied up, and you know, the pain does not stop in the body. It always affects the inside too.
It's emotional pain as well.
Yes.
And with the emotional abuse, being teased, humiliated, intimidated. A lot of adults don't realize how that can impact a small child because they're very vulnerable and they haven't experienced all the things that older people have experienced and become more jaded and desensitized to it. So children are really extremely sensitive, aren't they?
Yes, yes.
And so it's important to be really gentle with them.
Yes.
So these seemingly verbal assaults, a lot of parents don't seem to realize that it has a deep emotional impact.
Absolutely. And you know, like I said before, be careful what you say because you're going to create it without wanting. So if you tell someone that they're lazy so many times, they're going to start thinking of themselves and they're going to start finding evidence for that in the world.
Right. I remember as a very young child, there was one man who was a neighbor, who whenever he came to our house, I was afraid of him. Not because he had ever indicated any desire to harm me. In fact, he liked kids, but he had such a loud voice. You know, my hearing was so acute that when he spoke normally, it seemed like he was yelling. And just that memory alone tells me how attuned kids are to loud voices and verbal threats and quick behaviors or aggressive behaviors.
Absolutely. You need to be very careful.
Okay, so let's now go to the slide on sexual abuse, because sexual abuse and neglect, also sexual abuse is very common cause of bipolar disorder and probably depression too, but in many instances sexual assault and is known to trigger bipolar and be a big factor there. So let's talk a little bit about this in children, in young children.
Okay. So it really depends whether it's a one-time event that may be not going to have a lot of long-term effect, maybe some nightmares, maybe some fears. And then there's the more chronic sexual abuse, maybe accompanied also with the other kinds of abuse. And that definitely can affect all aspects of a person as they're growing. And that's where you see dissociation, for example, and that goes from the range of dissociating just, you know how...
It's a defense.
Yeah, it's a defense, like maybe you're imagining yourself being somewhere else when something unpleasant is happening, and that kind of help you survive it. And then it can become more pronounced when you actually split into a different personality that are handling different kinds of abuse. And that's when you have the multiple personality, now called dissociative identity disorder.
Okay, and this is so when the pain becomes so intense and the child doesn't know how to handle it, then they develop another personality that can maybe be a nasty person that can deal with that better, or how does that?
You know, really every system is different,
Okay.
but you can usually see that there would be like protector personalities helping the child to feel safe, and there might be the victim children. Maybe if there is an abuser where if you talk or if you cry, you'll get
Hit?
You'll get hit or you'll get punished more severely, then maybe you develop a personality that can't talk.
Oh.
and
Okay.
and that personality will come out when this particular person is in the picture. So it's really a quite ingenious defense mechanism,
Mm-hmm.
and
And it's not one that the children create knowingly. This
No,
is the subconscious
no.
creating this defense mechanism.
Yes, in fact, a lot of children may grow up and not even be aware that they do have those other parts.
Mm-hmm.
And this is one of the diagnoses that is really, we as mental health professionals, we are slow to, last number I heard was people with dissociative identity disorder, they are misdiagnosed for the first 8 years of their treatment.
And is that because often the therapist doesn't see the other personalities and not aware of them?
They don't check. Yeah, you need to
Okay.
check for it.
How do you check?
You ask,
Oh,
you can just ask and ask if there's anyone else there.
and then it responds.
Yeah, and you know, and that at least gives the person or those other parts knowledge that you may acknowledge them,
Mm-hmm.
that maybe they won't come out right there and then, but they know that you're okay with that.
Mm-hmm.
Or
It's
you know,
okay
so
for them
that's-
to come
yeah.
out so that you can talk with them as well.
Yeah, and if you see some of the symptoms, like there could be amnesia, like when one personality is coming out, the other personality is not going to know. There's usually a personality that functions outside in the world and may not know any of the trauma, because it's hard to sit in the dinner table, say with your father and your mother who just abused you an hour, you know, and act
Yes.
normal so you're safe.
Okay.
But if you have another part that know nothing about what happened, they can function for you at the
Okay.
dinner table and kindergarten, at school.
So it's really very, that one, dissociative, is very complex and it's very difficult to treat. I'm
It's
told.
actually, I don't know if it's difficult, it's actually have excellent prognosis, and you can really get very good results.
if you know it's there.
Yeah, and you know,
Okay.
a lot of people confuse multiple personality with schizophrenia, but it's two
different,
very
yeah.
different things.
Yeah.
It's schizophrenia is really not something that, as
It's-
far as I know, you can really make a lot of progress in, you know, in terms of delusions and.
You can nutritionally
Okay.
there, but it does it's more about dealing with the voices in their head. It's not
Right.
necessarily another personality. Usually.
Okay. And
So-
you wanna double
Check
check
for that, yeah.
Yeah, because you may have this.
But there's a
misdiagnosed them.
biochemical process that is involved in
Yes.
schizophrenia,
Yes.
and so it's not triggered by the need to develop another personality for protection.
Right,
It's a
right.
biochemical problem.
Right.
So okay. So